Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Trends channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless episode airing on Monday, September 29, 2025, opens with a wave of tension that has been building for weeks, and the reverberations of Jill's shocking return continue to echo through the lives of nearly everyone connected to her. The morning in Genoa City begins deceptively calm, with a quiet establishing shot of the Chancellor Winter's offices, but beneath that polished glass exterior, chaos is bubbling. Jill has arrived in Nice, France, with no intention of keeping her visit a simple social call. She is armed with devastating information that directly ties Kane to a series of business misdeeds and personal betrayals that could shake both his reputation and the balance of power in the family. For months Kane has maneuvered carefully, trying to keep the skeletons in his closet hidden, but Jill is no fool. She has pieced together the trail of deceit, and in this episode, the confrontation finally explodes in a way that leaves bystanders stunned and deeply unsettled. At the same time, Devon and Lily remain divided about how to move forward with the Chancellor Winter's empire. Lily, ever the steady hand and diplomatic force, is trying to keep the company's integrity intact, but Devon feels the constant weight of betrayal and half-truths pulling him in directions that don't align with his values. When news trickles in that Jill has taken matters into her own hands in France, both siblings are forced to stop mid-debate. The realization that their grandmother has chosen to act without consulting them is not just unsettling. It is a reminder of how Jill operates when she believes the stakes are high. She has always been willing to scorch the earth to protect her family, and now in targeting Kane, she risks not only his downfall but collateral damage that could destabilize Chancellor Winters itself. Devon's jaw tightens as he absorbs the news, while Lily struggles with a wave of conflicted loyalty. Kane may be reckless, but he is still family, and family wars have a way of leaving scars that never fade. Meanwhile, in Paris, the ripple effect of Jill's revelation is already in motion. Kane had been enjoying what he thought was a temporary reprieve, believing that his secrets were secure, but Jill's sudden appearance catches him entirely off guard. In a tense and emotionally charged exchange, Jill lays down the evidence she has gathered: financial discrepancies, fraudulent transfers, and manipulations that prove Kane has been pulling strings behind the scenes to benefit himself. Her voice is sharp, steady, and merciless as she exposes every detail, and Kane finds himself cornered, scrambling to deny, then to rationalize, and finally to lash out in a desperate attempt to salvage his pride. The scene plays with intensity, highlighting Jill's authority and Kane's unraveling composure. For longtime fans, it is a classic Y&R power struggle, infused with both family history and high-stakes corporate intrigue. By the end of their clash, Kane is left visibly shaken, not just because of Jill's accusations, but because he realizes she intends to make everything public. Back in Genoa City, Victor Newman observes these developments with his usual quiet calculation. Victor has little patience for Kane's antics and even less sympathy for Jill's dramatic methods, but he recognizes opportunity when it presents itself. With Chancellor Winters on the verge of scandal, Victor senses the chance to expand Newman Enterprises' influence yet again. He discusses the matter briefly with Nikki, whose concern lies less with corporate advantage and more with the toll these endless battles are taking on the family as a whole. Nikki tries to remind Victor that not every war is worth fighting, and sometimes restraint can be more powerful than domination. Victor listens, though his expression suggests he is already weighing potential moves. For him, power vacuums are meant to be filled, and if Jill's crusade against Kane destabilizes the Chancellor side of the empire, he intends to be ready. Elsewhere, Chelsea and Adam find themselves entangled in their own delicate drama. With Connor's well-being still at the forefront of their minds, Adam is trying to take a more measured approach to both parenting and his professional future. Chelsea, however, feels torn between wanting to support Adam's efforts at redemption and fearing that his pattern of self-sabotage will return at the worst possible moment. The episode takes a quieter pause in their scenes, contrasting the high-octane conflict of Jill and Kane with the deeply personal struggles of two parents trying to build stability. Chelsea's vulnerability is on display as she confides in Chloe, admitting that she doesn't fully trust Adam's transformation, but desperately wants to believe in it for Connor's sake. Chloe, ever the skeptic, warns her not to get drawn into false hope. These quieter, emotional beats provide texture to the episode, reminding viewers that in Genoa City, battles are not always fought in boardrooms or with corporate takeovers, they are also fought in the heart. The closing act of Part 1 builds toward a cliffhanger when Jill's decision becomes clear. She announces that she will be making a public statement, not just to the family, but to the board and press, exposing Kane's crimes once and for all. Kane, his back against the wall, desperately calls someone. Viewers don't see who, pleading for help and vowing that Jill won't destroy him so easily. The camera lingers on his panicked expression, as the weight of Jill's determination looms large. The stakes are high, loyalties are tested, and the fallout promises to spill into every corner of Genoa City. As the sun sets over the French Riviera, Jill's bold move begins to reverberate across the Atlantic, where word travels faster than any jet. The whispers of scandal surrounding Kane and the Chancellor Winter's empire have already reached several ears in Genoa City, sparking private conversations filled with both worry and anticipation. One of the first to react is Billy, who is caught in the middle of conflicting loyalties. His respect for Jill is unshakable, but his history with Kane makes the situation painfully complicated. He feels a pang of sympathy for Kane's children, knowing that the sins of their father may once again place them under scrutiny. At the same time, Billy cannot ignore Jill's ironclad determination. He has seen her in action enough times to understand that once she sets her sights on justice, or vengeance, there is no turning her back. His unease grows as he considers whether Jill has underestimated just how far Kane might go to protect himself when cornered. Meanwhile, Kane's desperation is reaching new heights. After his failed attempts to dismiss Jill's accusations in person, he retreats into a darkened hotel room and makes several frantic phone calls. The camera lingers on his trembling hands and the sweat forming at his temple as he dials one number after another, only to be met with silence or outright rejection. The moment is raw, portraying a man who has run out of allies, and is beginning to understand that his empire of lies may collapse faster than he imagined. Yet Kane's pride is not so easily shattered. His final call connects, and though viewers are not immediately privy to the identity of the person on the other end, his expression shifts from despair to something darker, determination laced with menace. Kane vows in a low, guttural tone that Jill will regret humiliating him, leaving fans on edge about what kind of retaliation he might be planning. Back in Genoa City, Phyllis finds herself unusually intrigued by the unfolding drama. Never one to shy away from a scandal, she discusses the matter over a drink with Nick, her sharp wit and biting commentary underscoring the absurdity and gravity of the situation. Nick, however, is far less amused. He worries about the ripple effect that public exposure of Kane's actions could have on the families intertwined with Chancellor Winters. The Rosales family, the Ashbys, the Winters, all are connected in ways that make fallout inevitable. Phyllis, with her characteristic smirk, points out that chaos often clears the playing field, and sometimes opportunities emerge where others see only destruction. Nick shakes his head at her pragmatism, though the spark in his eyes suggests he knows she's not entirely wrong. Their conversation is a reminder of the different lenses through which Genoa City's residents view crisis. Some see disaster, while others see doors opening. As the episode continues, Sharon is shown at Crimson Lights, quietly processing the chatter that's spreading like wildfire. Sharon has always been the heart of empathy in town, and her focus is not on the scandal itself but on the people who may be caught in its wake. She gently counsels Lily, who stops by for a moment of reprieve from the boardroom storm. Lily admits to Sharon that she feels torn apart inside. On one hand, she knows Jill's revelations are necessary if Kane has crossed ethical lines, but on the other, she cannot bear the thought of watching her children suffer because of their father's mistakes. Sharon's soothing words provide a moment of calm, reminding Lily that protecting her family does not always mean shielding them from truth. It sometimes means giving them the tools to face it. This exchange highlights Sharon's continuing role as Genoa City's quiet voice of reason, even in the middle of chaos. Elsewhere, Nate and Elena cross paths in a moment of serendipity that carries a weight of unspoken tension. Nate, who has been striving to re-establish his professional integrity after a series of complicated missteps, finds himself once again facing choices that blur the lines between loyalty and ambition. He is approached by a contact who suggests that Kane's downfall could open up doors for him at Chancellor Winters if he positions himself correctly. Elena, watching his reaction closely, warns him not to let temptation dictate his path. Their conversation is layered with subtext, the echoes of their past relationship, the wounds of broken trust, and the fragile possibility of reconciliation. Nate assures her he has learned from his mistakes, but the lingering doubt in Elena's eyes reminds viewers that redemption in Genoa City is always precarious. The episode then shifts focus back to France, where Jill sits alone in her hotel suite, gazing out at the glittering lights of Nice. Though her demeanor remains strong in public, the private moment reveals her own inner conflict. She reflects on the personal cost of exposing Cain, questioning whether her actions are fueled purely by a sense of justice or by long-standing resentment for his failures. Jill is no stranger to tough decisions, but the weight of family makes this one sting in ways she struggles to admit. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears as she whispers to herself that sometimes love means making the hardest choices. It is a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a woman who is more often defined by her resilience and fiery determination, and it humanizes her crusade in a way that resonates deeply. The oppressive weight of the previous week's revelations seemed to have seeped into the very walls of Genoa City, a town where secrets were currency and trust was a liability. As the pale morning light of Monday, September 29, 2025, filtered through the towering windows of the Newman Enterprises penthouse, it illuminated not just the polished marble floors but the profound fissures in a marriage that had once been considered the city's bedrock. Victor Newman, the indomitable patriarch, stood silhouetted against the skyline, his posture as rigid as his resolve. The confrontation with his wife, Nikki, over her clandestine alliance with Jordan and the subsequent, desperate cover-up that involved their own grandson, had left a silence between them that was louder than any screamed accusation. He had not slept, his mind racing through decades of battles, both in the boardroom and in the heart of his family, but this felt different. This was not a hostile takeover or a corporate spy. This was a betrayal that struck at the core of their shared history, a history already marred by addiction, deception, and forgiveness stretched to its absolute limit. Nikki, meanwhile, remained in their cavernous bedroom, the silk sheets feeling like a prison. Her remorse was a physical ache, a cold knot in her stomach that tightened every time she replayed the look of utter devastation on Victor's face. She had acted out of a terror she could scarcely articulate, a primal fear of exposure and relapse, but in doing so she had handed Jordan a weapon far more powerful than any blackmail. She had shattered Victor's faith. Her phone, buried under a pillow, had buzzed intermittently with messages from a blocked number, each one a silent, mocking reminder that her tormentor was still out there, watching, waiting to see how the dominoes she had set in motion would finally fall. The game was far from over, and Nikki knew with a sinking certainty that the next move would not be hers to make. Across town, in the subdued elegance of the Chancellor Mansion, the atmosphere was equally tense, though for reasons rooted more in sorrow than in treachery. Claire Grace, her eyes still red-rimmed from a night of crying, moved through the quiet halls like a ghost. The euphoria of finding her grandparents, of being welcomed into the formidable Newman fold, had curdled into a profound sense of guilt and confusion. She had looked up to her Aunt Victoria, had seen in her a strength and grace she aspired to, and the thought that she had been an unwitting pawn in a scheme to undermine her was unbearable. Kyle Abbott, who had stood by her through the darkest revelations of her past, now watched her with a worried crease in his brow, his usual charming banter replaced by a quiet, supportive presence. He understood the complex dynamics of this family better than most, having navigated its treacherous waters himself. He tried to reassure her, holding her hands and telling her that Victoria would see the truth, that she was a victim in this just as much as anyone, but Claire's fear was a stubborn thing. She had spent a lifetime on the outside looking in, and the terrifying prospect of being cast back out into the cold, of losing the family she had only just found, was a pain sharper than any she had known before. She replayed every interaction with Jordan, searching for a clue she had missed, a hint of the malice that lay beneath the surface of their shared history, but all she found were her own desperate hopes for connection, hopes that had been so easily and cruelly manipulated. The source of all this turmoil, Jordan, remained a spectral presence in the city, her location unknown but her influence pervasive. From whatever shadowy corner she was hiding in, she was undoubtedly monitoring the chaos she had orchestrated with a cold sense of satisfaction. Her plan had never been simply about revenge in a straightforward sense. It was about corrosion, about forcing the mighty Newmans to tear themselves apart from the inside. The revelation about Nikki was a masterstroke, but Jordan was a strategist who always thought 3 moves ahead. She knew Victor's resources were limitless, that his fury would now be laser-focused on finding her, and she had prepared for this. Contingencies were in place, fail-safes designed to trigger if she were captured or, more likely, if she decided the time was right to escalate her psychological war even further. Her hatred for the Newman and Abbott dynasties was a cold, patient flame, and she had only just begun to stoke it. The files, the recordings, the whispered secrets she had gathered, they were not all deployed yet. She was watching the players on her chessboard, assessing their weaknesses, and on this particular Monday, she saw a new opportunity in Claire's profound distress, and in the fragile state of Nikki's sobriety. A well-placed nudge, a carefully worded message, could send one of them spiraling, creating the perfect distraction for her next, more audacious move. Meanwhile, at the Grand Phoenix, the mood was a stark contrast to the gloom enveloping the Newman estates. Here, amidst the vibrant Art Deco decor, a different kind of tension was brewing, one fueled by ambition, rivalry, and the intoxicating possibility of a fresh start. Billy Abbott paced the length of his suite, his energy barely contained. The success of his new media venture, a passion project he believed in with every fiber of his being, was tantalizingly close, but it was a success that felt inherently tied to the ongoing drama at Newman Lock. Every stumble by the corporate giant, every headline of internal strife, was a potential boost for his own platform. He knew it was a fine line to walk. His complicated history with Victoria, layered with residual care and new professional animosity, made his actions feel personal, even when he framed them as purely business. Lily Winters, his partner and voice of reason, watched him with a mixture of admiration and concern. She understood his drive, shared his vision for a company that was truly their own, built away from the shadow of their family's legacies, but she also feared the collateral damage. "We're building something, Billy," she had told him the night before, "not just tearing something else down. Don't lose sight of that." Her words echoed in his mind now, a gentle caution against the pull of his own Abbott Newman instincts for ruthless competition. He knew she was right, but the predator in him, the part that still thrived on the chase and the victory, was finding it hard to ignore the scent of blood in the water. This professional battleground was further complicated by the presence of Adam Newman, a man who had made a career out of navigating moral gray areas. Seated in his own minimalist office at Newman Lock, Adam felt the familiar, almost comforting pressure of a corporate crisis. The stock fluctuations, the nervous board members, the frantic calls from investors. This was a language he was fluent in. Yet this time his focus was divided. While part of his brain was calculating damage control strategies and potential acquisitions to stabilize their position, another, quieter part was preoccupied with his father. He had seen Victor defeated before, but never like this. This was a wound, not a defeat. And where there was a wounded lion, there was danger for everyone in the vicinity. Adam's own complicated path to a semblance of redemption felt strangely mirrored in Claire's situation. They were both outsiders who had fought for a place at the table, both perpetually suspected of reverting to their darker natures. He felt a surprising and largely unacknowledged urge to protect her from the full force of the Newman fallout, a sentiment that would have been unthinkable for him just a few years prior. This internal conflict was a quiet undercurrent beneath his cool, analytical exterior as he prepared for a day that promised nothing but fire. The day's first major confrontation ignited not in a corporate boardroom, but in the familiar wood-paneled comfort of the Genoa City Athletic Club. Chance Chancellor, having spent the night piecing together the fragments of the Jordan case, found himself face-to-face with a visibly strained Victoria Newman. She had come seeking a moment of respite, a futile attempt to outrun the headlines and the worried glances of her employees, but there was no escape. Chance, ever the dutiful chief of police, approached her with a professional demeanor that barely concealed his personal concern for the family. "Victoria, we need to talk about the timeline of your interactions with Claire before she was officially introduced to the family," he said, his voice low and steady. Any detail, no matter how small, could be crucial in locating Jordan. Victoria, her defenses already at a breaking point, bristled at the implication. "Are you questioning me, Chance? In the middle of all this, you think I'm withholding information?" Her voice was sharp, laced with the exhaustion and pressure of holding her company and her family together. My father has the entire private security force of Newman Enterprises on this. I assure you, we are all motivated to see this woman brought to justice. The exchange was tense, a dance between official procedure and the raw, unyielding loyalty that defined the Newmans. It was a clear signal that the battle against Jordan was being fought on multiple fronts, and the lines between ally and investigator were becoming dangerously blurred.